All right. And we are live, everybody. And I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight on Royce in the House. And I'll start out by introducing my co-host. Over here, we've got, it's hard to go the correct way. We've got Dan McNew, Just the Facts man, fantastic podcaster. He's got some great shows coming up. He's been sharing with me what he's getting ready to do. And we're really, really looking forward to it. It's going to be fantastic. Dan has a lot of contacts in the music industry. He knows a lot of band members, so it's going to be fun. And below both Dan and myself is the one and only Michael Noland, the bottom line. And Michael's got a fantastic show. And we love going to Michael's show. I try to leave comments every time I go. I think I'm one behind right now. Just had a new one come up. And anyway, so Michael's got a great show, one of the fastest growing shows I've ever seen. It's the fastest growing I've ever seen, actually. Great show. And he really covers a lot of classic rock acts. And he's doing a wonderful job. And he covers a lot of ground in a short period of time and leaves you begging for more when he's gone. It's like, come back. It's not over, is it? I'm just kidding with you, Michael. Anyway, so we've got a great crew here tonight. I do want to mention one thing. One of the things that's going to happen tonight is, as you know, it's 6:30 Pacific time here, but at 8 o'clock, I don't know how I got into this, but the American Music Awards show is on tonight at 8 o'clock. And I promised everybody a contest. So throughout the night, maybe twice, I'll pull up a sheet. I just picked 4 categories, and they could just go like A for category 1 and 3 for their choice. And Caitlin Stoddard, our own Caitlin Stoddard, is going to be keeping track of all that. And the winner gets a an album, okay, double album set, Robert Plant and Alison Krauss. And so I will send that to him. If there's a tie, we'll do a quick drawing on the next show, and we'll get their mailing information and get it off in the mail to them. Okay, so that's what's going on here. I want to thank everybody that's in the chat. I mean, look at this. We've got Gloria, Angela, Daddy Boggs are already there. Rachel's Ghost. Rachel, I'm going to put a link up for you. You got to get in here with this girl. And let's see. We've got, oh, man, we've got Vinyl Mine. We've got Bill K. Yeah, so Linda Foster showed up. Hi, Linda. How are you, Linda?
Hey, Linda.
We'll all be saying hi to you guys individually, but once again, I want to thank everybody for being here. I know we'll have many more people joining. We're going to hold a little contest for the AMA Award Show, which is later tonight after our show's over with. I'm going to give away a nice album to the one that picks the most out of the 4 categories we're going to vote in, okay? And that's all going to happen fairly quickly. That's not the focus of the show. It's just a little side thing. But thank you, guys. Thank all my subscribers, old and new. The show is growing, and we appreciate each and every one of you. And so Zep Pearl just joined us. Hey, Zep Pearl. Zep Pearl's a great podcaster. He's got a good show, and we're looking forward to Zep Pearl popping in at any time. So I think I've got a link here, and I do. And Rachel, I just put the link up to join the show. So what we're going to talk about tonight is 3-piece bands or power trios. I like to call them power trios because it takes a little bit of power to do this with three members of a band, you know. And I know that I've got 3 that I'm kind of focused on, and I know Dan was focused on 3. We both picked kind of 3 of our favorites, and then we have others we can talk about too. We're not limiting it to that. Dead Wax 66, Randy, hey, I want to let everybody know that Dead Wax 66 has got a great show, as does Bip Bop Boom, or John, Jon. They both have great shows. Please go to their shows, Bip Bop Boom and Dead Wax 66, John and Randy, and you know, subscribe and help them out. We're all trying to grow our shows. And we've got Chilled Pint. We just got joined by Chilled Pint. Thank you very much for joining us, buddy. We look forward to seeing you. JBL L100 Classic Fan Club President just joined us, as did Jazz Bums Mike. I'm be introducing people all night, but we really appreciate you guys all being here. So anyway, we're going to cover power trios, okay? Now, I'll start out by just saying my first remembrance of a power trio that I just absolutely loved was the Cream. And the very first 8-track I bought, well, I bought two at once, but one of them was Disraeli Gears, the Cream. It wasn't their first album. Fresh Cream was their first album. I don't have that one, but I have several of the others, and I have a compilation that's got some of the Fresh Cream songs on it. But anyway, so I discovered Cream, 1969, I think it was, 70-ish. Just got my first car as a teenager, put an 8-track stereo in it. I started catching some Disraeli Gears songs on the radio, as well as some Creedence Clearwater songs. And the same day, as soon as I got the stereo in, I went out and bought Disraeli Gears and Bayou Country by CC&R. And still love them both today, still listen to them both today. And I'll never get tired of them. You never get tired of certain bands. And so Mary Jane has joined us. George, Music for All Four Seasons, has joined us. Jim, Record Collector News, has joined us, as has Jason Rojas. Thanks, buddies. Really appreciate all of you. And all these guys have podcasts too. Check them all out. Let's see. I might have missed one. I'm sorry if I did. George, Music for All Seasons. No, we got you, buddy. Okay, so we got a lot of great podcasters here tonight. 3 of them on the screen right now, if I can be so bold. So anyway, so I discovered my first power trio, the Cream. And boy, did I love that Disraeli Gears, Tales of Brave Ulysses, Sunshine of Your Life. I mean, the hits just one right. I loved there wasn't a song on Disraeli Gears I didn't like. I mean, I love that album. And the crazy thing is, as I told you, I don't have their first album, but I do have a best of Cream here. And it's got some of the stuff, Spoonfuls on Fresh Cream, their first album. And so this is a great album. I've listened to this. It's been fun to listen to. But what I really want to show off here is my original Disraeli Gears. And I just grabbed them off the shelf. And this is kind of a classic cover too. And I have another cover also. So I think I found a little nicer cover than mine, so I bought another one. But anyway, so Disraeli Gears, I mean, I absolutely love Disraeli Gears. I mean, I've listened to that as much as I probably listened to anything. It's one of those things that'll go into my tape player. I'm driving, and it might stay in there for several weeks. It might stay in there for a month or two. And anyway, I never, there's certain bands I never get tired of, Then I get tired of them. I don't listen to them for several months. I eventually do get tired of them. But Disraeli Gears is just amazing. Strange Brew, Sunshine of Your Love, World of Pain, Dance the Night Away. I mean, it just goes on and on here. These songs are just Tales of Brave Ulysses. I love those songs. Where did they come up with that? Eric Clapton, of course, guitar and vocals, but the main singer and maybe even songwriter was Jack Bruce. What an amazing voice. He's the majority voice on these songs here. Clapton sang Crossroads and in backup vocals, and as did Ginger Baker. But the main vocals were Jack Bruce. Just fantastic voice and songwriter.
That's something that was kind of unique with them as well, because they had 2 singers basically.
Yeah.
In a trio.
Right.
Usually in a 3-piece, you had 1 singer, and there they had 2 of them, which is
that's
unique.
Right. Yeah. And Jack Bruce did most of the singing on these albums. What do you think, Michael? Are you a big Cream fan or?
Moderate.
Moderate.
Cream
Okay.
fan.
Okay.
Yeah. I love Eric Clapton.
Yes.
He's at the top of my guitar, favorite guitarists of all time.
Right,
He's in the top 3. He's done some marvelous things, and Cream was great. I just, you know what? They were there and then they were gone.
Right.
And then I guess I just never really caught up. And I eventually bought their, what was the anthology set that came out in the 90s? Covered a lot of their material. And I caught up with them and, kind of lived Cream for about a year. And never really went back to them except for their, the big hits. I've got about 7, 8 songs from them in my big playlist.
Okay. I want to mention once again, Rachel's Ghost is in the chat. Rachel, I just put a link up, about 5 lines behind you. Go ahead and click on the link and come join us, would you? Ricefield Records is just now joined the chat. So is Novus Nick. Okay, good. And Zep Pearl I mentioned already. So, okay. So, I mean, I really love the Cream. I have one interesting story to tell. Okay. Eric Clapton and, of course, George Harrison had become friends. Hello, Rachel.
Rachel.
Hi,
good to see you.
Lover people.
We have another podcast star here, Rachel's Ghost. She's got a
star. Good
show.
Word for us.
And I think Rachel, are you going 7 days a week now, or is it 5 or 6?
For myself, I'm doing every day at 6 o'clock in the morning Pacific till about 9 o'clock. And, I brought everybody over. I called it the Royce in the House pregame show today. I did it. I just finished like a 2-hour thing because I've been watching these Russian dramas, like these mysteries. There's a medium. She's a psychic. Sees dead people. It's called Anna the Detective on YouTube. So I have 3 hours of that. I said, Sue, I got to have a break. Maybe I can go on and talk about records.
Thank you for mentioning my name. I mean,
of course.
I've been missing coming on your show, but I've been leaving early in the morning for Morro Beta, this job site I'm working on.
Yeah.
And just scrambling to get it done because I've got another pressure cooker job site coming on where they're having to relocate a bunch of people out of an apartment building. Well, I work on that, and they keep reminding me how much that's costing, which is, sends chills down my spine. But anyway. So I'll get back. We're talking about power trios, and I started off with one of my favorites, and my first power trio was the Cream with Eric Clapton, Jack Bruce, and Ginger Baker. And Ginger Baker, of course, at the time was considered maybe the best rock drummer at the time. And of course, Clapton was top of his game, guitarist, and Jack Bruce, what an amazing voice, great bass player, just super talented folk. But I had one story I wanted to share. Okay, so as you know, George Harrison and Eric Clapton became good friends, and Eric Clapton played on George Harrison's "While My Guitar Gently Weeps," played the slide guitar and stuff on that. George Harrison didn't play slide, and who was it? One of the Allman brothers, not Dwayne, but Greg Allman. No, it was Dwayne Allman. I'm sorry. Okay. Dwayne Allman taught Clapton how to play slide guitar. He didn't know how to play slide either until then. But anyway, so Clapton did George Harrison a favor on "While My Guitar Gently Weeps." And when it came to the very last album by the Cream, which was called Goodbye, every member was tasked with writing a final song individually. They all collaborated on other songs, but they were all tasked with writing a final song. So Clapton goes back to his buddy George Harrison and said, "Hey, I helped you out on "While My Guitar Gently Weeps. I need some help writing a song." And so they all sat down, and it was George Harrison, Eric Clapton, and Ringo Starr was in the room drunk. And so they're sitting there and they're trying to come up with lyrics, and they keep getting stuck. And every time they got stuck, a drunk Ringo Starr would shout something out, and they'd go, "That's it." They'd write it into the song. And Ringo came over and looked at what they'd written down so far, and they were going to call the song Bridge. But Ringo looked at it upside down and go, "Oh, I see you got a name, Badge." And they go, "Okay, we'll change it." And they changed it to Badge because Ringo said Badge. And then they got stuck, and Ringo said, I can't remember the line word for word, but something about a girl, her name was Mabel or something like that. He just shouted that out while they were struggling with the next line. And they said, "Thank you, Ringo." And they just wrote that into the song. And it wound up being a hit song. And I always loved that story. So anyway, after Fresh Cream, after Disraeli Gears, then we had Wheels of Fire. Wheels of Fire, a great album, good stuff on here. White Rooms. Who didn't love White Rooms? What an iconic song that was for the Cream. And then, of course, the one I had just mentioned, where they were all tasked to write an individual song, Goodbye. And the interesting thing is, before this even came out or was even finished, Eric Clapton was already writing songs with Blind Faith, the next band he was going to be in. And my older brother and I got really close as I got a little bit older, became a teenager, because we used to hitchhike out to his house in Vegas and party. He was a dealer out there. I mean, my friends didn't even have cars yet. And he'd always invite, hey, Royce, bring your friends on out. We'd all go out there and hang out. And he was a big Beatles fan. He loved Sgt. Pepper's and Magical Mystery Tour. And, we'd go out there and listen to music with him, and he loved Eric Clapton. And so he bought me my first Blind Faith album. He bought it for me for my 16th birthday. And I really and I still have it. I still have that album, just like I have my Disraeli Gears, and I have my Are You Experienced by Jimi Hendrix sitting on my desk here too. So anyway, that's what I wanted to talk about. I wanted to cover the Cream and the impact that had on my life. And Dan, do you want to go with one of the ones you'd pre-selected right now, and we'll just kind of go back and forth a little bit?
Well, I was going to ask you a question on that. You talk about Ringo throwing out those words and they write it down. Did they give Ringo credit for any of that?
No. And I don't think he even remembers.
Did Ringo get any credit for darning his socks in the night? Ringo gets ripped off all the time.
Right. But you know what? I think he's getting the last laugh today. I saw him. He was doing a concert and he invited Sir Paul up on stage to sing a song with him. And Ringo's voice was just killing Sir Paul's voice that night.
Yeah, I think Ringo's probably the healthiest looking, out of both of them.
He really looks good, doesn't he?
He's the oldest. I believe he's the oldest as well.
Yes.
Oh, is he? And he started.
He was older than John.
He really came on later, as a great drummer, a very iconic drummer, and had the big movements. And I know other drummers are always talking about how good he is, and I believe that too. And he is great. So anyway, that's okay. So go ahead, Dan.
Well, the band I liked, I had a list of three here, and I would say the three that I picked, my top would be the Police. They were popular from 77. They formed in 77, and they're still popular today, even though they unofficially broke up, I think, in 1986. Yeah. After their fifth album. Right. And I think they did it right though. They kind of went out when they were on top. Right. And when you go out on top, and they didn't officially break up. They always said, we're never going to say never. So, right. Of course, they went years and years without ever getting back together. But there was a couple of times where I think it was at Sting's wedding, all three were together and they had a band playing, and they all three got on stage and played some Police songs. But it was basically just out of drunken fun.
Hey, a lot of that goes on.
The history is pretty cool because the band initially started off as Stuart Copeland's band, and punk was just really getting started, so he wanted to get into the punk scene, and so he started looking for a singer, and he found Sting, so they start working together, and they need a guitar player now, and they got a guy named Henry Padavani. Yeah, Henry Padavani was a guitar player. Now, he was big in the punk scene, so he had connections everywhere. So that's how the Police got to have their first gig, even though you don't hear much about Henry, but he was the original guitar player in the band. Okay. And so once they started getting noticed, they thought, well, maybe it will sound better if we add a guitar. So they went out looking for guitars, and they found Andy Summers. Okay. So they brought Andy Summers in. So the three-piece was actually a four-piece for about six or 7 months. From January 77 till August of 77, they were a four-piece, but they only performed together like 3 times. And Henry was more of a punk player. He only knew like 2 or 3 chords. And the other guys, they wanted to get a little more detailed. And he just didn't quite fit in, so they booted his ass out. And then they became a three-piece. And the rest was history, basically. It's kind of odd because they started off in England first. Of course, they're considered the second wave of the British bands. But before that happened, they're trying to get well known in England.
Second wave of the British bands, interesting.
And they just in England they just couldn't catch on. They just they had some notoriety, but they weren't where they wanted to be yet. And They even released the song Roxanne as a single over there.
And
it
they
failed.
did.
And it failed. It just wouldn't work.
Huh.
So they decided, well, we got to go to the United States. We got to go to the United States and, do a tour. So they kind of did it. Right. So they did kind of a test. They came over and they did like an East Coast tour, and they were a hit. And since they were hit here, suddenly they were hit in England, and it exploded after that. And
a lot of those clubs were like big selling clubs, but they were dives too.
Yeah.
They worked their asses off on that first tour,
and just to get noticed, basically. Yeah. And so, what happened after that? There was one of the problems they had as a band. All three of them brought something unique to the band, and they all realized that. But, they did not get together. They did not get along very well together at all.
Oh, okay.
They said any little incident could just blow up in their faces. There was always arguments all the time, and they were kind of at each other's throat. And, but they all realized what was important. The band was important, so they always agreed. Right. When they came to music, there was, they had their disagreements, but it was all in,
right.
just the way most bands work. And, even like I said, when they've got together at Sting's wedding years and years later, all three were performing, and they said when they're performing, even on a drunken thing like that, they said they could feel the tension between the three on stage again.
Okay.
And they even stopped playing then. They said that the tension was just too much. But they said, we're never going to say never. If we want to get back together, we can get back together.
Right.
Unlike a lot of bands today keep saying, hey, we're leaving. We're still here, but we're leaving now.
Right.
The police never.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
The police never called it quits. They always left everybody hanging with that thought in their head. Are they going to get back together? When are they going to get back together?
Right.
And I think the last time they were together, they did a tour in 2007 and 2008, which was the highest paying tour ever up to that point. So they were still doing well even years later. Hell, they got how many awards they get? They got 6 Grammys. 2 Brit Awards, Music TV Award.
Oh, wow.
They're in the Hall of Fame, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Let's see what else they do here. Oh, yeah. They sold 75 million albums. And so that's only what it makes them one of the best-selling bands of all time. And I think they're like 5th to the Beatles. But, I just saw a recent interview with Sting. I kind of doubt that they'll ever get back together now. I mean, they're in their early 70s now, late 60s.
Right.
And Sting is more dedicated to his style of music now. And he said one of the problems with being a 3-piece band, he said, you're limited. You're limited. You can't really expand from a 3-piece band. And he wanted to do more. And there were some bad feelings when he kind of went out on a solo career, but they thought it was cool because it still projected. When people saw Sting, they thought about the Police. So he said it still helped the brand, even when Sting was out doing his own thing.
Right. Well, I recently, I remember Michael remembers me showing it. I recently bought a Sting double album set that was remastered at Abbey Road Studios and things like that. And I immediately came home and listened to it. I really enjoyed it. I've always liked Sting, and I always liked the Police before Sting. But anyway, that was all good music. Okay, I have to do one thing before we go any further. I made a promise to people 3 weeks ago. I did a little show on the American Music Awards show, which is being held tonight, 8 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. It'll be right after my show. And I told everybody, listen, I'm going to have a contest. I'm going to give away an album, Robert Plant and Alison Krauss, 2-album set. I'm going to give that away to whoever picks the most right answers in just 4 categories. I wanted to really keep it simple. So I'm just going to pop that up on the screen right now. Not quite as clean as I would have liked it, but hold on, folks. Let me. I've got to remove. Great. I've got to remove this comment first. Okay. All right. Sorry about that, guys. All right. So let's go down here to brand. Okay. What we have here is I just picked out 4 categories of tonight's American Music Awards show. Artist of the Year, New Artist of the Year, favorite rock song, and favorite rock album. And my good friend and fellow podcaster, Caitlin Stoddard, is keeping track of who chose what. Whoever gets the most right out of these 4 categories is going to win that album, and I'm going to mail it to them immediately. And if there's a tie, we'll put those tied names into a hat, and I'll pull it out at the next show and pick a winner. So the way we're going to keep this very, very simple, and you're going to put these in the chat. Artist of the year. If you want to pick, say, Drake, which is number 4, for example, all you're going to do is go A4. If you want, when you get to new artist of the year, which is category B, if you want to choose Dove Cameron, you go B1. C, favorite rock song. If you want the Red Hot Chili Peppers' Black Summer, item 5 there, you go C5, and so on. So the next one would be you're choosing favorite rock album. It'd be like if it was going to be Machine Gun Kelly, who I've recently listened to. I don't think there's anybody here I haven't listened to. It would be like D4 for Machine Gun Kelly. So I'll leave that up for just another moment while we're talking, and I'll bring it up one more time. And everybody just vote in the chat. Caitlin Stoddard's keeping track of who's voting for what. And you can always go back and look at this if you need to. But get your votes in tonight because there's shows tonight at 8 o'clock. And hopefully we'll know who the winner is then. So I'll leave this up for a couple of more minutes. Like I said, make it easy on yourself. A in a number, B in a number, C in a number, D in a number. And just throw them down in the chat. Caitlin Stoddard's keeping track. So there you go, folks. Give you another 30 or 40 seconds to make some picks. And we will put it back up one more time before the show is over, just to keep it fair. All right. So we're going to go back now. We're going to go back to our comments now. We'll pull this down. I mean, if I ever get my act together here, we'll pull that down. Go back to our comments. Okay, so, all righty, Dan. So did you have more you wanted to say about the police right now, or?
Oh, muted, Dan.
Yeah, you're muted, Dan.
Yeah. Sorry, I had a cough going there. Yeah, you had a comment up here earlier. 67 Peppers said, I saw the police on their first U.S. tour at the Berkeley Community Theater. They had to replay songs they had already played in their set for an encore because they didn't have enough songs. And it's funny you mention that because even when they were recording albums, there was times where they go in thinking they had enough material. And there's one song, I forgot which album it's on, but it's called, the name of the song is called Murder by Numbers. That song, they had one song. They were short one song.
Okay.
And they didn't have anything to go by, so they said, so Stuart Copeland just started playing some drums, just messing around. Then the other 2 guys come in, they plug in, and they start playing. It just off the wall stuff, And then Sting said, well, I got some extra lyrics here. So he pulled out some lyrics and they were just winging it. And he started singing a song, and that's how that song was made. They just did it on the fly because they had one extra spot left on the album they had to fulfill. I mean, that's talent. I mean, when you get
oh yeah.
Although that's not one of my favorite songs. I listened to it again today, and it's now that I know this.
Don't put that one up.
Sorry, I didn't really read it before I put it up. Yeah.
Thanks for the thought, Randy.
I don't even want to know. Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to.
Okay, so all right. Well, cool, Dan. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I'm just saying, when they make up something on the fly like that, now that I know what the secret is behind that song, I realize it's kind of a goof song. They didn't put any thought to it, and I start thinking, well, how many other songs did they do that were hits?
Right. Okay, so Michael, you or Rachel want to bring up a power trio you'd like to talk about, or?
Oh, okay. I'll go. I guess Michael's band. First, I'll mention a band that Michael and I both like. It's a Canadian band known as Klaatu.
Yeah.
With the Beatles, they're a 3-piece band. I have a friend of mine. He's a drummer. He was with a band called Showdown. They had a big hit with a song called "The Rodeo Song," written by Texan Gay DeLorme. Gay DeLorme's quite a talented guy. And but this rodeo song became a big hit. But Paul, the drummer there, he always said, the thing is, Rachel, with bands, a 3-piece is always your tightest combo. If You get a three-piece in, the bands always sound so tight because there's less elements being put into the equation to make a cohesive sound. So yeah, so Canadian band, there's so many power trio, call them power trios because, you know, you got a big bass sound, everything's in overdrive. So many great three-piece bands out there. I guess Jimi Hendrix, the Hendrix Experience. I prefer Hendrix Experience over and above the Band of Gypsies, the later incarnation. Noel Redding in the mix, and there's a great, I think it's Beat Club or something, the German program, and it's got Hendrix playing there, doing a cover of Hey Joe, his cover of Hey Joe. Absolutely fantastic. Awesome. And Noel Redding is just grooving to it. It's very similar to the David Bowie, Freddie Mercury tribute. When you got Brian May, he's just doing that simple, you know, DGC kind of power chord sequence for Heroes. And you see Brian May, and he's just lost in the moment there. But so there's so many great ones. I guess Hendrix would be my number one power trio, but I like Police. I've got the box set. I bought the box set, the complete albums of the Police, and then I got the CD version, the collection of, I think it's a 4 CD set of the Police. So that's a great one. Cream, of course, as you mentioned, Royce, fantastic. Rush, Canada's power trio, number one, certainly one of the most high profile, many would argue the best band Canada ever produced. Rush, certainly, and I've got Rush in the collection. So all these bands that we've mentioned so far tonight are represented in the collection. Is Rachel snubbing Rush? No, I've got Rush in my collection. My favorite album is Signals, but I've also got Farewell to Kings, which is also excellent. And I mean, they're fantastic. Triumph is another Canadian band. Motörhead, Power as well. And then ZZ Top. I mean, there's so many of these great power trios, I call them, that really do a great job.
There really is, yeah.
You know, from what I understand, the reason that these power trios got so popular in the late 60s and early 70s, and since then, is because in that time frame, that's when they learned the technology and amplification changed. Distortion was different. You know, they could not create this different distortion, and it makes the sound more full. And they realized, well, we don't need a rhythm guitar player. We don't need him anymore because we can make the same sound without him. So there was, you know, it may sound better with 4, but you know, you can do the same thing with 3 people. You know, and so, but it's all because of the new technology that came out.
Yeah, Emerson, Lake and Palmer rates for me as well. John, I've got ELP in my collection as well. Brain Salad Surgery, the self-titled, the one with the dove on the cover of it. Oh, what a lucky man he was. You know, we all love that. It's fantastic.
Thanks for joining us, buddy. Well, you know, Rachel, Michael, is there a power trio that you want to chime in on at all, or?
Well, first of all, everybody's had an excellent choice here. To lead off with, Rachel knows I'm a big Klaatu fan, and Dan and I were talking before airtime that the Police ranked very high on our list. But my favorite power trio of all time, barely nudging out the James Gang, would be Grand Funk Railroad, man.
Oh yeah,
Grand Funk.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
You know, out of all the classic rock bands, currently for the last 2 years, I listened to them probably more often than just about anybody but the Beatles and Zepp.
Right.
You know, they're just absolutely phenomenal. And they were better live. I mean, think about this. They don't have an Eric Clapton. Mark Farner's a great guitarist, but he's not one of the top 10 on probably most people's lists, right? Don Brewer, fantastic drummer and very high on my list, but probably not in the top 10 of most people's list. And Mel, as a bass player, very underrated as far as I'm concerned. But they're not like, you know, they're not like Page and Bonham and John Paul Jones all connected. you know, and they don't have a vocalist that can do quite what I have too many times said that Robert Plant does in his sleep. But guess what? The three of them together, what did they have? They had one of the best damn guitarists that was available, the best damn drummer, and a highly underrated bass player, a songwriter, a great lead vocalist, and a drummer who could have been the lead vocalist as the only lead vocalist in any other band. And they were better live than their studio albums. And I love their studio albums. So that's my pick. Yeah.
You know, I got a story about Grand Funk Railroad. When they first got together, just back like 1969, it was like right after Woodstock. I mentioned this before. Right up the street from me is Louisville, Texas, where they had basically the same Woodstock lineup. It was Louisville, Woodstock. There was one in Atlanta. They had the one in California. And, well, they already had the lineup all set up. And this band comes up, you know, they had their equipment in the van. They said, look, we want to play. They said, well, look, we're not going to pay you. And we really don't have a place on the stage for you. They said, you know, we get some plywood and set the plywood up in front of the stage. You can set up there and perform. That was Grand Funk Railroad. You know, they got one of their first starts at the Texas Music Pop Festival.
Wow.
Yeah, I just wish they'd all kiss and make up. I'm sorry.
Well, I tell you, I'm gonna move on to. I mentioned that Dan and I had talked before the show, and we both selected three to highlight. And I know this has been brought up already, but you know, I have my. You know, I didn't choose the Cream before Jimi Hendrix because I put them as number one as power trios. I did that because in order of when they came out, the Cream was out before the Experience was out, and that's why I put them. I mentioned them first. But I have my original Jimi Hendrix Experience here, you know, and there is no bigger fan of Jimi Hendrix than me. I mean, I love Jimi Hendrix. I have worn out so many 8-tracks, cassettes, CDs, albums, you name it. I've worn them out, and this is pretty worn out too. That's why I wound up, you know, replacing it with a new one, which I haven't opened yet. But this is pretty cool because, you know, as much as I love this, and this is all analog mastering from the original 2-track master tapes by George Martino. I'm sorry. Should have my glasses on. Complete original artwork, manufactured by Quality Record Pressings. But anyway, what I really loved about this, I couldn't believe the price tag. I wish all of the albums were $13.97 to get a new Jimi Hendrix Experience. Now, this is number one to me. This was the first studio album. Axis Bold of Love and Electric Ladyland were the next two studio albums for the Experience. Okay, just that band. You know, Hendrix's short career was only basically 4 years long. Now, having said that, okay, here's Electric Ladyland. Now, I have a pretty extensive Hendrix collection, and I'm not going to show it all tonight because that's a whole nother show. You know, I mean, I've got the Live in Maui 3-album set where Hendrix was at the top of his game. He went to Hawaii, Maui. They built a stage. He played like in front of 250, 300 people. He did 2 concerts. And so I've got the 3-album set, the book, the whole 9 yards. It came with the Blu-ray DVD to watch both concerts. And I've also got the 8-album set that was released in 2000. And there's no studio albums on it. It's all the outtakes and things like that. But remastered stuff, so you'll still be multiple, like maybe Purple Haze might be on there 4 times, different versions. There's different versions of the songs that were released, and it's an 8-album set. People get mad at me when I say this. It's still got the shrink wrap on it. It was made in 2000, so it's 22 years old. And I've had people. Lou Mars was going to get me 1,000 subscribers if I'd unbox it, and I said, of course I will. You know. Anyway, so I've got that. I've got the Hendrix double album, blues album, and I had that I had that on CD. It's not new, it's old, but it's got some great stuff on it. Even Red House is on it. Of course, that's probably the most iconic blues song he had was Red House. But I've got that. I've got, you know, Hendrix live at Winterland. I've got 2 album set, Hendrix at Woodstock. I've got a lot of Hendrix, but like I said, I didn't want to pull that out. I just wanted to pull out the experience because this is truly the Jimi Hendrix Experience is my #1 power trio. I love that band, and I love the Cream too. I love them both. So having said that, and showed a couple of albums here, Dan, you can take the ball and run with it now. You have a couple more to show too.
Yeah, Rachel already mentioned a couple of them. My next one was Rush. I mean, can't beat Rush. I mean,
no.
First time I ever heard Rush, well, because they'd already been out a couple of years before I discovered them. I was in the military out in San Diego and heard 2112 for the first time. And that was a big breakthrough album for Rush because before the album before that, you know, the studio pretty much had them and didn't, you know, pretty much controlled everything that Rush was doing. But when they did in 2112, the record company was totally against the way they wanted to do it and basically said, if this album fails, you guys are gone. Well, it was their biggest album, you know, to that point. And they said after that, they had the freedom to do what they wanted. The album, the record labels just left them alone, said, look, you guys, whatever you guys are touching is turning to gold. So just do whatever you got to do. So Rush had, you know, very few bands get to have that freedom, you know, away from a record contract. I mean, a record label like that.
Yeah, right.
But well, first time I ever saw Rush was in 1977, and they I can't remember if they opened up for UFO or UFO opened up for them, but it was UFO and Rush together. And kind of a small venue. And that was back in the days where Rush was wearing these, you know, priest type robes, you know, and they're performing these robes. And, you know, and there's on that 2112 album, there's always a big thing they always get with Alex Lifeson. You know, we had the camel toe. So obvious in that picture. He's wearing these tight pants. He's got a camel toe going big time. They even joked to him about that at the Hall of Fame when they got inducted to the Hall of Fame. They pointed that out again. Just to embarrass him. But Rush, you know, and Geddy Lee, I got something special with Geddy Lee. We share the same birthday, so different year. He's 2 years older than I am, but you know, we had July 29th, and but Rush was one of those bands. I mean, what I like, especially 2112, that one whole side of the album, it tells a story, you know, and people just listen. Some people didn't get it. You know, they heard the music. I said, but no, listen to what they're saying, what they're discussing. You know, it's the whole album, the whole side of the album, nothing but a story about the way they treat music in the future. Very interesting.
Yeah, that is cool. Boy, I tell you, the chat's alive with power trios too. This is amazing. So anyway, I'll go ahead with my third selection here. I like this band a lot. And it's ZZ Top. And I used to ride my Harley Davidson every year to the Laughlin River Run. I met Sonny Barger back there and the Hells Angels. That was 2002. I was playing a quarter machine inside of Harrah's where we always stayed, and I didn't know what was going on. But a motorcycle club called the Mongols basically had taken over Harrah's. I mean, the whole place was full of Mongols and me, you know. And so it's 2 a.m. and I'm playing a quarter machine, you know, having a drink, and I hear a bunch of gunshot. I'm like, what the hell's going on here? I start looking around, and pretty soon a wave of people rushed past me bleeding. It was carpet. There was blood in the carpet at my feet. A slot machine, 3 from the one I was playing, had a bullet hole in it. And almost as quickly as it got started, undercover police were running through there yelling for everybody to lay on the ground, you know. And so I reached up and hit the button, collected my ducats, you know how we roll. But so anyway, so we're all laying on the ground, and they rounded us all up and locked us in a room for 16 hours so they could sort us out, see who was involved and who was just happened to be wrong place at the wrong time. I was 50 feet away when the Hells Angels and the Mongols started shooting each other. And anyway, I don't want to get into the whole story, but so I got held for 16 hours, interviewed by Las Vegas Metro. Wanted to know, what do you do? I go, I'm a contractor. Okay, well, what are you doing here? I come here every year on my motorcycle. All right, get the hell out of here. That's how they talk to me. It's like, what the hell, man? So anyway, so that went down. There were dead bodies out in the parking lot. You could see them out your hotel window. And so the next day, I walked down to the Flamingo, where HA, the Hells Angels, always stay. And we'll go down there and watch them do burnout and wheelie contests and wreck bikes and stuff like that. And the day before, Sonny Barger, the symbolic godfather of the Hells Angels, who organized them all into one corporation, standardized the colors and wrote the the rules of being in the Hells Angels. He was in the Oakland chapter, the head of the Oakland chapter. He was down there the day before. He just written a new book, and he was autographing books for people. And so we figured after what just happened, he'd be long gone. We walked down there, and there's Sonny Barger signing books again. So I've got pictures of me, me and Sonny, shaking hands and holding his book up and things like that. But anyway, so we used to make that ride. And one of the years that we were there, ZZ Top was one of the bands playing. And I got to see them. And wow, that's the only time I ever got to see ZZ Top was on the Laughlin River Run in Laughlin, Nevada. And boy, what a fantastic band. I really, really enjoyed that show. Sometimes you can't even, it just blows your mind how much music's coming out of three people, because a guitar player, he's got to play the rhythm, he's got to play lead, he's got to go back and forth and try to fill in what, a 4 or 5 piece band might be doing. And those guys, you got to be really good to do that. And these guys put out so much music, man. I was so impressed. And I was even a bigger fan after I saw that at the Laughlin River Run. But I've got a few of their albums. I've got this one.
Yeah,
it's a great album. And I've got another one here, the best of ZZ Top. Then this is a great one here. Eliminator is just outstanding. I mean, we've got Gimme All Your Lovin', Sharp Dressed Man, She's Got Legs, Dirty Dog, Bad Girl, and then I got this, and this is a great album right here. It's Billy F. Gibbons solo, Billy Gibbons solo album, Hardware, and that's a really good album to listen to too. But as far as this band goes, they were formed. Let's see, how many albums do they have? This was kind of surprising. I had to write this down, but they've got 15 studio albums, ZZ Top. They have 4 live albums, 7 compilations, and 44 singles. So they put some music out. They were formed in 1969 in Houston, Texas. I'm sure Dan's very well aware of that. Billy Gibbons, guitar and vocals, Frank Beard, the drummer, and Dusty Hill, who sadly died last year. He was the bassist and vocals, and we all miss him. And I think, didn't they have a one of their techs filled in for him as playing bass now?
I'm not sure who's filling in for him now.
And
but he is a new member. I know that he's playing. What was it? A 15-string bass. He just showed it off.
Wow.
Incredible amount enough strings on the damn thing. Being from Texas, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen ZZ Top. I've seen them so many times. And it's
nice.
And it's someone mentioned earlier about Frank Beard, the drummer. His last name is Beard, and he's the only one that doesn't have a beard, which is
that's funny. Oh man, yeah. Angela says it all right here. Rest in peace, Dusty.
Well, I'll tell you what's cool about being in Texas. One time I was out on the road doing some work, and I was in LaGrange, Texas. What the song's named after. And while I drive to LaGrange, Texas, ZZ Top comes on, and they're playing LaGrange. I went, wow,
oh, is that right?
How cool is that?
That's very cool. Yeah.
But not right, surprising if it was a local station, Dan.
I think it was a San Antonio station that I was getting.
They grew their beards after seeing Rory Gallagher on stage. People had long beards. Truth. That's cool, Brown Dog. Thanks a lot, buddy. Thanks for showing up, and thanks for participating like that. That's great.
It's funny. You look at their early days, the pictures of them when they were younger, when the band first started, and how they wore the big cowboy hats and they had the boots. They look like cowboys. And, and then you look how they ended up, 50 years later. They don't even look the same at all. You can't even look like separate people, different people.
Hey, Dan, I think
same for much longer after that.
So we're Ziab told me that compilations don't count. You're right. Although there's some you can't knock, really. Some are great.
You know, something that ZZ Top did too is back in, I think it was like 1973, they had a huge outdoor concert down in Austin, Texas.
Okay.
Evidently, there wasn't a good result of that concert. I think there was a lot of injuries. There was a lot of, it was in the summertime. And
that's
so the state of Texas banned outdoor concerts. There was no more outdoor concerts until 1978. You know, they had the Texas Jam. They approved it. And so there's like a 5-year gap there where there were no outdoor concerts allowed in Texas because of the heat and everything. And going to the Texas Jam like I did, I understand why. I mean, when it's 120 degrees, literally, on the football stadium, inside the football stadium, and you're crowded in there with 100,000 people when the stadium's only built for 80,000.
Wow.
You know, it's just unbelievable. But, you know, we survived it, and it's a memory now. So
Right. Oh, no, I hear you, Dan. You know, I was living in Southern California when they had California Jam 1 and later on 2. And we went to that. I mean, Ozzy Osbourne, the Eagles. I mean, there was great acts there, you know. But I tell you what, we sat there in the sun and just absolutely roasted. And you were packed in like sardines. I skipped California Jam too. I just want to see another one.
Yeah, I'm too old for that now. You know,
no, I hear you. Yeah. Okay. So anyway, I think I'll just throw out some other power trios that haven't been, if there are any that haven't. Well, Genesis from England, that was a power trio. Motörhead. Dan was going to talk about Motörhead, I think. Of course, Nirvana. Nirvana was a power trio. Of course, Rush has been brought up. Stevie Ray Vaughan and Double Trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was a great band. Stevie Ray. Oh, we've lost so many good ones. It's just crazy. Sublime was a power trio. And I like that band. Santeria, and they had a bunch of good stuff. Emerson, Lake and Palmer, they got brought up.
Yeah.
Green Day was a power trio. The Beastie Boys were a power trio. Blink 182, pop punk power trio. Okay, now here's a biggie that never got brought up. Crosby, Stills, and Nash.
Oh, yeah.
There wasn't Crosby, Stills, and Nash before there was a Young and a Taylor. And, of course, we did a show not too long ago on Laurel Canyon, and just about everybody up there was claiming credit for putting them together. And so anyway, and, of course, Grand Funk Railroad got brought up already, and they were a power trio. So anyway, I just rattling off a few names here. You know, I think Dan, did you want to? You had a third one you haven't brought up yet?
Well, the other one, my third one was Emerson, Lake and Palmer.
Oh, okay.
And
okay.
I enjoyed Emerson, Lake and Palmer because it's.
Oh yeah.
You know, they started 1970, I think it was. It's quite a while ago.
Yeah.
And I didn't really realize who Emerson, Lake and Palmer was until about 73, I think it was. I think when Brain Salad Surgery came out. And that album got me. I mean, they're described as being progressive rock supergroup, but they didn't like the term supergroup. See, because Greg Lake used to be in King Crimson, and and I know what's his name, Keith Emerson. God, my mind went blank. Keith Emerson, I believe, is in another band as well. But, you know, that's one of the bands when they got together, they took off really quick. It didn't take long at all for them to get popular. I mean, it was within a year. And so much money was coming in for those guys. And these guys were really into technology as well. Anything new that came out in technology, they said they went out and bought. And, and you know, for the longest time, they were just a power trio. But there was one tour where they actually rented a 100-piece orchestra in 1977. And this 100-piece orchestra traveled with them. And so the expenses added up. You know, you had to pay for the orchestra, you had to pay for the travel, everything, you know. So they didn't make much money. And they said, you know what, we got to lose the orchestra. And they didn't really want to lose the orchestra, but they had no choice. Finances said they had to lose them. So they dropped the orchestra. Okay. And then the orchestra comes back to them and says, look, I think they did 10 shows, I think, with the orchestra. And I mean, it was a huge get up for them. And once they told the orchestra, look, we're going to have to let you go. We just can't afford you. They said there was a lot of tears and everything. The orchestra was upset. And they even said, look, we have had such a great time. We'll do it with no pay. Just give us lodging and food, and we'll completely rest the tour with you.
No kidding.
Well, the musicians union stepped in and said, no, you can't do that. You must pay them. So
those damn unions.
So the union forced the orchestra to stay off the tour. And by the end of the tour, they looked back at the stats of it. They actually did better without the orchestra.
Okay.
But they said they kind of overindulged on everything. As long as the money was there, they were going to spend it, because they were a type of band. They realized there was more than just the music. They're more into the visual part of it as well. And people think that Tommy Lee was the first one to have a rotating drum set. No, Carl Palmer. Carl Palmer did. Another funny story about Carl Palmer, talking about people doing extremes. He wanted to have his own drum kit, a custom drum kit built for himself. And he saw some sterling silver. And he said, I want a sterling silver drum kit. And they said, well, we can do it. It's going to be expensive, but we can do it. And they said, do you want it a 1/4 inch thick, or do you want it 1/2 inch thick? He goes, hell, if 1/4 inch is good, 1/2 inch has got to be better. He said, make it a 1/2 inch thick. So they made this entire drum kit out of 1/2 inch stainless steel.
Are you kidding?
He didn't take into account how much that was going to weigh. He said it took 2 full-grown men to lift up his bass to move it. So it was very heavy. And I think they said he used it for like 2 tours. And then after that, he just put it away, and it just collected dust for years. And I think Ringo Starr owns it now. But
well, maybe one of you guys remembers this. I'm trying to remember who I saw on video, drummer. And they were on a track that went completely upside down, looked like a real slow-moving type of roller coaster or something. I mean, very slow. And they were playing the drums upside down as this thing went around this track. Was that Motley Crue?
Yeah. Well, Carl Palmer was the first one to do it back in the 70s.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
But more recently, that was like Tommy
Lee did it
That's
too.
What I thought. Yeah, I just wasn't sure.
But yeah, they were, and Emerson, Lake and Palmer broke up. When was it? Well, they were together from 1970 to 1979. Then they kind of broke up, and they got back together like 1990 to 98, I believe. And then they did another tour. What year was it? 2010, I believe it was. They went on another tour, and that was the last tour. And they were wanting to do it again, but then Greg Lake and Keith Emerson passed away in 2016, the same year.
I see.
Lost both of them in the same year. And so Carl Palmer is the only one left. And I've just been reading about a tour that he's doing. He's bringing back Emerson, Lake and Palmer. And people say, well, how are you bringing back Emerson, Lake and Palmer? They've been gone for 6 years. He goes, well, we did a video shoot at the Royal Albert Hall. And, they got excellent video footage of everybody. So what they're going to do, Carl Palmer is going to be playing his drums, and he's got a tribute band, Emerson, Lake and Palmer type tribute band. They'll be playing background music, but they're going to use the same audio and the video from the Albert Hall for Keith Emerson and Greg Lake. So so when you go to this concert, you're going to see Carl Palmer and you see the other 2 guys on the screen actually hearing their music with backup from the tribute band. And I thought, oh my God, I would love to see that.
Wow.
So when I looked into where they're touring, well, the tour ends December 3rd. The last one is at Akron, Ohio on December 3rd. And I thought, man, if I had a little more advanced notice, I think I'd do a road trip to go see that. And then, of course, after that, he's going on tour next year with Asia. That's who Carl Palmer used to be. He used to be with Asia. And they'll be touring next year.
Okay.
I'm not sure if Asia's 3-piece or not. Does anybody know?
Steve Howe, you got Wheaton, is Glenn Witten or something, Glenn Wheaton, something like that. He was with Cream Crimson, bass player.
Oh,
what
okay.
am I thinking of? And then you got Carl Palmer on drums. Did they have a keyboard player with Keith Emerson? So I think they're a 4-piece. I think
Okay.
Well, I'm gonna do this one more time. I'm gonna put up the contest. I'll mention it again. The American Music Awards show is tonight, Pacific Standard Time, my time here in California, at 8 p.m. It'll be on shortly after the show's over here. And so we're having a contest. We're giving away an album. We're giving away Robert Plant, Alison Krauss double album here. And to whoever gets the most right answers, there's only 4 categories. You're just going to choose from 4 categories. I'm going to pop that up real quick again. And here's the list. And once again, the way you're going to vote, you've got A, B, C, and D, just 4 categories. A, Artist of the Year. B, New Artist of the Year. C, Favorite Rock Song. D, Favorite Rock Album. Now, there's 30 categories. I just picked these 4. I'm going to keep it simple and short. But the way you're going to vote, A is Artist of the Year. If you want to vote for Bad Bunny, you just say A2. B is New Artist of the Year. If you want to vote for New Artist of the Year, you'll say B. Say you're going to vote for Dove Cameron, B1. Favorite Rock Song is C, category C. So it'd be C in the example of Red Hot Chili Peppers, it'd be C5, and so on and so forth. Favorite Rock Album is category D. If you want to vote for my friend Machine Gun Kelly, mainstream sellout, you'd be voting D4. So just keep it simple, letters and numbers, 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's it. So I'll leave this up for a few more seconds. Give everybody an opportunity to vote. Caitlin Stoddard, our own...
Royce,
yes.
Royce, bingo.
Bingo.
Oh, we're not playing. Oh, I'm sorry, buddy.
B4, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That's funny, Michael. Thank you. Nice little humor here. So anyway, so this is, I got involved with this primarily because I was trying to highlight some of the newer bands. I tend to zone out or zone in to the bands I've been listening to and loved for so many years. And I don't pay a lot of attention to the new stuff sometimes. So every once in a while, excuse me. Every once in a while, I try to get caught up a little bit. Bad Bunny's new up here under Artist of the Year. He's being called maybe the biggest band in the entire world. Or, well, he's actually solo. And then, Harry Styles, relatively new. Taylor Swift's been at it for a long time. The Weeknd.
Gag.
Now, wait a minute. I like Dove Cameron, okay? And I love Gail's song. The one song I've listened to all of these people, and Gail sings this song. You don't really like me. You're just horny. How could you not like her after hearing that?
Oh my God!
But anyway, so it was fun going through. It was fun to see the Red Hot Chili Peppers back in under Favorite Rock Album, and the Foo Fighters in there under Favorite Rock Song, and the Red Hot Chili Peppers both. So that should be interesting. Okay, I'm gonna cut this off now. So anyway, get your votes in. We'll be choosing a winner. Caitlin Stoddard is tallying the votes. If there's a tie on next week's show, we'll do a real quick drawing out of a hat with all the names in it. And whoever wins needs to get me their mailing address, and I'll immediately get this album out to you. Okay, so let's go on. Let's get back to the chat with probably some voting taking place. And okay, I pretty much covered the bands I was going to cover. I don't know if anybody else wants to talk about a power trio or anything else. What you want for Christmas? I don't care really. We're here to have fun, right? I mean,
Stan Peters from Canada. I saw them in 1977. There's a fun interview with them because it's the nature of rock and roll. They had a Sweet City Woman was a big song for them, and a couple others that they did. Yeah, that's a funny comment, Zep, because I would guess for sentimental favorite, the Kate Bush is going to win that category. My own thinking, but they had a great comment. They were being interviewed somewhere, and they said we'd play these big arenas in the U.S. We're touring with all these big bands. And then we'd come home and we'd be playing high school gyms for people, like the juxtaposition of going from big full arenas with your song on the radio, top 40, and then to come and to make a nickel, they'd have to be playing some kid's high school dance. And I thought that was such an interesting reality about the rock and roll life. So on this thing, you know, I wrote down my guesses. I'm thinking Taylor Swift, she had like 10 spots in the Billboard
on the Billboard 100. Now the caveat to that is she did release all 10 as singles, and that's never been done before.
Yeah, but more power to her. Listen, anyways, so I'm going her artist of the year, Lado Manskin, because I don't know who the hell that is. So I figured Lado Manskin is B3, so I threw that in. Then Kate Bush, Sentimental Favorite, because that her running up that hill did so good. And then the only other thing is Ghost that band is getting a little hype, or they're in the consciousness. They're doing they've been getting some magazine coverage and some news report coverage. So those are my four: Taylor Swift, Lado Manskin, whoever the hell that is, Kate Bush, Sentimental Favorite, and Ghost. I wonder if I'll get any of them tonight. We'll find out.
Well, you know, you've got as good a chance as anyone. I mean, this is not easy to do. I made some selections too, but
well, I'm curious.
Not that I would influence anybody, but I chose Taylor Swift also.
Okay.
Artist of the year for a lot of the same reasons not because I'm a fan. I want to make that perfectly clear. I'm not really a fan.
You're not a Swiftie.
I was hearing a lot about her new album Midnight, so I started listening to it. I got to about song number 5, and I was practically clawing on the walls. You know, it's just not my style. But just in recognition of, you know, what she's doing right now, and it has been doing, I had to, you know, because I want to win. You know, I'm just kidding. I don't get to win. And I chose Dove Cameron. She reminded me of Blondie. And how do you not like Blondie? But Dove Cameron's pretty cool. And again, I had to go with the Foo Fighters song, Love Dies Young. And then it was really tough on this last one, but I had to give it to the Red Hot Chili Peppers. I've been talking to a lot of young people out there because I was trying to figure out what the young people are listening to. And I was really querying my 17-year-old grandson. He finally said, he was acting really annoyed with my questions. And he finally said, "Papa, just stick with what you know." I thought that was pretty funny. It's like, forget about what we're listening to. You're not a fit, okay? Go away. And you know, I'm probably not. You know what I'm saying? It's Hendrix and Zeppelin and the Beatles and, you know, all these great classic bands, and that's where I'm always going to be. But you know, I got into, well, you know, when the grunge came out, I got into all those bands too. And that was, I can still consider them my new bands, along with the 19-year-old Foo Fighters, my new bands, right? So every once in a while, I just try to get caught up on the new stuff and just see what's going on out there. Whether or not, you know, how much of this is going to stand the test of time. I remember being junior in high school, you know, when Led Zeppelin 2 came out and a Whole Lot of Love was being played 18 times a day. And we all just went completely nuts over Led Zeppelin. I remember thinking to myself, are people going to be listening to Led Zeppelin in 5 years?
Yes, they will.
You know what I'm saying?
And well beyond.
I can't get in my car. If I take a little road trip where you have to find 5 radio stations while you're driving, I'm not exaggerating. 3 or 5 of those stations that I find will play a Led Zeppelin song. You know, you can't hardly get in the car and not hear a Led Zeppelin song. You know. So anyway, I'm in love with my older bands, and I always will be. But I'll mix it up a little bit, you know. So anyway, so the contest is kind of in the can, and let's see. I want to thank everybody that showed up, and hope you guys all voted. And I want to ask everybody, please hit the like button, the thumbs up button. What that does is it lets the algorithm know that people are enjoying the show. And when people go on you know, YouTube, even Google, and they're doing a search for content, you're getting a lot of thumbs up. You're getting new subscribers. You get noticed, and they recommend your content. And that's how the shows grow. So please hit the thumbs up button. If you're not already a subscriber, please subscribe. We welcome you. And we really appreciate everybody in the chat. Really appreciate, you know, Rachel for joining us tonight, Michael, and of course, Dan, my co-host, a regular. And we really appreciate everybody. You guys make the show. This was such a fun chat tonight. There were so many people, and they were interacting, and you know, everybody knew about a lot of power trio bands, and just so much. There's so much knowledge in our chat. It's just I don't even know what to say anymore. But we have a fantastic chat, and we really thank all of you for being here. But at this point, unless someone's got something they really want to talk about, I guess we'll be signing off.
Well, I'd like to mention talking about, the way the show is, how we all have a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
Add up how old we are. How many concerts are we seeing?
Right.
We're probably talking 100 years of concerts here.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just in the last 6 or 7 months, I've seen Alice Cooper and Journey, And
it's really good, Royce. So you still, you get out and still see them. I kind of hung up the concert badge. I think I haven't seen a concert in years, a long time.
Well, I really kicked myself. There was a lot going on, but bucket list was always Carlos Santana. Been a huge Santana fan ever since Woodstock and Soul Sacrifice. What an amazing performance that was. And they were playing at right here at the fairgrounds, and I didn't see them. As was John Fogerty. I could have seen them both this year, and I missed my chance. And I don't even like admitting that. I'm so bummed out about it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
What about now? I lost track of these guys a few years back.
Okay.
But their first couple of albums, and they've got a pop sound to them, but I'd consider them damn good power trio, and Los Lonely Boys.
Oh yeah.
I hear they've just recently gotten back, and I heard them on pop radio. It was a station my wife usually listens. She has a popular sensibilities about her, and I heard their first single, and I loved it. I go, now that's great pop. And then I started catching up on them, and I started buying DVDs of their live performances. Those guys can cook, man.
Oh, yeah.
Or at least they used to be able to.
I'll tell you, I just in the last week or so read something about them, and I don't remember exactly what it was, but I guess they're back out on the road, you were saying.
I just read.
Right.
That I guess the bass player, what is his name? Oh God. Anyway, the bass playing brother had to take some time off and everything, but he's back. So and they've put out a recent album. Their output has been kind of sparse over the years, and I think that's where I kind of lost track. And they put out one album that had a few too many pop songs to it, kind of like how Seal wound up disappointing me. I loved that first Seal album.
Oh yeah.
And then he shaved his head and became
right.
Bullshit, man. So that I guess I wasn't hot to trot for the next album, but I'm reading some really good stuff on the band, and I just wondered if any of you guys had heard anything about them.
No,
only what I said.
But I tell you one thing, Rob Walker would be mad at us if we don't mention the Jam. The Jam are also there's another trio, great trio there. Paul Weller and friends.
I want to mention I've got him up on the screen here, Todd Patterson. That's my nephew, and Todd's a fantastic musician. And yes, Todd, Rush has been mentioned. And Todd's got a studio in his house, and he just I think he plays every instrument, and he's just got some really cool songs to listen to. Really puts them together. And Todd, sooner or later we're going to bring you on. You're going to play us one of your songs, all right? And this is my wife's sister's son.
Hi, Todd. Nice to see you out there.
Anybody who's got their own studio is okay.
Works for you, right, Michael?
Absolutely.
We see your setup with your, of course, what you got.
Version from the days of yore, though.
Okay, 10 o'clock Central Standard Time. You've got the Vinyl Archivist Patrick show starting, and I've been checking in with Patrick. Yeah, thank you, Zep Pearl. Thanks for the reminder. I know you're actually Zep Pearl's on his panel every week. Yeah. And it's a good show. They play a lot of good music.
I did want to say a big thank you to V. You know, he gave this channel, my channel, a great shout out the other day, and I appreciated it, really.
Yeah, and Zep Pearl's a great guy, and he's got a great channel, and he's super knowledgeable, really knowledgeable. Yeah, there's so many really knowledgeable people here. Bill Kay is a perfect example. Bill Kay here, this guy is a warehouse of rock and roll knowledge. You know, I'm always impressed. He brings up stuff that you know nobody else seems to know about. It's great.
You know, Mike Pre-Code fan just mentioned, you know, I like Rush as musicians, always been undecided about Geddy Lee's voice. That's something you and I were discussing before the show tonight, you know, that was one of the early problems with Rush. People didn't know what to think of his voice, and it turned a lot of people off. But for me, I thought his voice was unique, and it kind of drew me in, you know.
Gotcha.
And I told Dan in response, to listen to him, I'm fine. It's just like listening to John Anderson with Yes. But in the car, I don't usually play Rush because I like to sing along with the singer. And, you know, even Robert Plant, I can get to 50, 60% of his range. You know, I used to sing second tenor, you know, but Geddy Lee, oh my God, I can't even be, I have to start in Mickey Mouse voice. And then he loses me beyond.
I totally can relate.
He's fantastic. He's fantastic.
I totally can relate to that for sure.
Yeah,
that is
fantastic band. Love them.
Right.
Alex Lifeson on guitar is unbelievable. That guy. Well, Neil Peart, you know, on drums. I mean, oh my God.
Right. Did
he's got a normal voice, normal speaking.
Neil Peart, yeah.
Sorry.
No, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was just going to say, Neil Peart's one of the finest drummers in rock ever.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Or
did he just get sick or something, Neil Peart? I mean,
he died of brain cancer almost 2 years ago. You know, and they called him the Professor. And I don't know if you realize this or not, but he wrote most of the lyrics for all the songs. He was the lyricist, not only just the drummer.
Well, that's cool.
They lost. You know, they kind of lost part of their voice with his passing. You know, as well as, I mean, who do you get to replace him these days? You can't. Yeah. Nobody's on his level.
It's like Zeppelin. You can't reform the band with him out. You know, it wouldn't be Rush anymore. To me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you're right.
Even though he was the
second drummer. Had great harmony. I'm sorry, Rachel. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying, even though that Neil Peart was their second drummer, but you know, he's such an iconic force, and he's the one that saw them through their most productive period. So.
Right. You know, he went through some really bad times there in the last few years. You know, he lost his wife, and then he lost his daughter. You know, so he took a break. He got on his motorcycle and drove like 50,000 miles on his motorcycle for a couple of years.
Oh man!
Wrote a book about it, you know, and just trying to get his head. And you know, I haven't lost my daughter, but I did lose my wife, so I kind of know what mindset he's in. You know, you just got to get away from everything for a while, and that's what he did. Then he finally came back to the band and said, "I think I'm ready." You know, so they all got back together and did a couple more tours. I think their last tour was 2015.
Okay,
and then he ended up getting the brain cancer, and he kept it quiet for quite a while until near the end. You know, he disclosed it then. And, of course, Geddy Lee and Alex, they said they'll never bring Rush back. You know, that's it. You know, they're not going to – how can you replace Neil? I mean, you just can't.
No,
it's impossible.
He's really rated up there like, you know, 1 and 2 with John Bonham. I mean, he's right up at the top.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, okay, folks, I think we're going to sign off.
Thanks for having us up.
Oh my God! Let's do it. Good to be here. Let's do it again next week. Okay, so all right. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, everybody in the chat. Really appreciate you all, and thanks.
You're doing the underarm noise there. What
I was not give a shout out in the shoulder.
Yeah, you know what, Michael? I got to give you a shout out. Just I want to say how much this guy, what a great channel he does have.
Absolutely.
Really one of my favorites. And folks, if you're not subscribed to Michael Nolan, check in on it. It's really the best. It's classic rock and roll. He's got such a passionate way of communicating and stuff. I'm a big fan. And I owe it all to you, Royce, because I met Michael through you. I'm very grateful to that. And I also met Dan through you as well. But, great to be on screen with you folks.
Thank
Royce,
you.
You're just wonderful.
I love watching and coming on your show as well.
Oh, it's a soup. It's a soup, but we have fun.
I'm just sorry.
Matchmaker of the evening, because I met Rachel one evening on your show.
Matchmaker of the evening.
She was on. I don't think I was on, but I was typing away, and that's how I was aware of Rachel. And of course, on my channel, I shout her out at every possible moment. You know, what she does. And lately, Rachel, good Lord, you're putting out 4-hour streams.
Yeah, we did a 4-hour this morning.
Oh my goodness!
Wow, couple of times now, huh?
Yeah, it happens every now and then. Well, you get different people that come on just near the end, and then I want to give them full thrift, give them at least a half hour, and sometimes you'll get 2 people that come on just near the end and they haven't been on before or been a while. And so you want to give them exposure. And, the idea is to enlarge their presence and support them in this sort of thing.
Oh, yeah.
Rachel, all I can say is that your show has really affected my channel. And
yes, the microphone works.
Sorry, Alex. You started it, Alex. This is your fault, Alex. Okay, Alex, you did this. All right.
Oh man, where's my
there we go.
You're so right about that. It's silly. Bryce, thanks again.
Okay.
Thanks, community. Thanks for kind words regarding my much better half, Mike Brico. Thank you. All right, everybody.
Thanks, everybody. All right. Okay. Good night, everybody.
Good night.